Let's put our phones on silent or shut them off. Welcome to the opening celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Pardes Institute for Jewish Studies. We are honored by the presence of members of the Pardes boards, supporters of Pardes, former and current members of the Pardes faculty and administrative staff, and students of Pardes. We're especially honored to be graced by the presence of those who traveled from far away to join this celebration. And I want to give a special shout out to two indefatigable, remarkable, and devoted lay leaders without whom we would certainly not be here celebrating today, Moshe and Libby Worthen. When Pardes opened its doors in 1972, it was not only the first non-denominational Beit Midrash, it was the first Beit Midrash in the world open to women, at a time when Talmud study for women hardly existed anywhere on the globe. 5 decades, half a century has passed. In 1972, when Pardes was founded, Queen Elizabeth II had only been a monarch for 20 years. As you probably know, in her honor, Pardes even sent President Yitzhak Herzog to London for her funeral today. Since 1972, the world has changed profoundly in ways too numerous to count. Pardes has weathered 2 intifadas, numerous wars, financial crises, technological revolutions, and even our own leadership changes. Let's just say that staple items and institutions like typewriters, Kodak film, wooden tennis rackets, Lehman Brothers, TWA, Woojis, Project Otzma, and Machon Gold have disappeared even from memory. Yet Pardes is still around, not only surviving, but thank God, thriving, with a wonderful new cohort that has just started their learning in our Beit Midrash, a fantastic faculty and administrative staff, active and supportive boards both in Israel and in North America, and a wonderful new building on the way. This ceremony marks the beginning of a year of celebration, which will culminate with the Pardes Jubilee Learning Seminar in June. So, let the Jubilee celebrations begin. Our first speaker became famous as a prisoner of Zion in the Soviet Union. He inspired so many of us in this room. He challenged a dictatorial superpower, and after 9 long, unimaginable years of struggle in prison and in the Gulag, he emerged victorious. Many of us older adults in this audience protested in the streets on his behalf, wrote letters to congresspeople and to MPs. So many of us remember the inspirational night he arrived in Israel, surrounded by thousands who greeted him at Ben Gurion Airport and then later that night at the Kotel. He went on to become a member of Knesset, a minister in several governments. He is a friend of Pardes. We thank him for joining us, especially at the last minute. Awarded the gold medal by the United States Congress, the US President's Medal of Freedom, the Israel Prize, and the Genesis Prize, may I present Natan Sharansky.
Well, dear friends and supporters of Pardes, congratulations. And I'm also one of you, and I will explain why. In fact, when I was told that I have to speak in the shoes of Buzha Herzog, I was a little bit perplexed because, after all, his English is Oxford English, and his grandfather is a chief rabbi, so his relations with Judaism are very close. So I decided to speak about my relations with Judaism through Pardes. You know, when I came to Israel, my Jewish identity, my Jewish identity started from being part of the anti-Semitic society, where the Jew meant that it is written in the ID of your parents, Jew. And as a result, you have a lot of problems. As if you were born with kind of disease, cancer or some other disease, and you have to learn how to live with this. You can do nothing with this identity. You don't need it. There is nothing positive in this world. There is no culture, no language, no tradition, nothing. And then there came Israel in 1967, and the pride for Israel. It's suddenly becoming Zionist. And then you learn that there is very interesting history, and then culture. And only in prison you find out that prison is a very good place to talk to God directly without rabbis. So you discover Judaism. And then you come to Israel, and you find out that it's not enough, because your wife, in the meantime, for 12 years that we were not together, she became very religious. And that's what keeps her going and keeps her fighting all these years. So, okay, you decide, after all, I know mitzvah, shalom abayit, so we'll have no problems. And we really didn't have any problems. But at some moment you understand that she is using the words, comparisons, metaphors, which really don't tell much to you. So you decide you really have to fill the blanks in your Jewish studies. And that's how I got to know Meir Schweiger. And we had meetings in my home, and then in Rehov Gad in Pardes, old building. What was good that this building was next to Ulpan Etzion, where 12 years before my wife started her way in Jerusalem. So it was very sentimental. And Meir really opened for me that these stories of Tanakh, it's not simply interesting stories, and it's not simply some have religious meaning, but they are very closely connected to our daily life, and how much chokhmah is behind all these comments. We were not in a hurry. For a few years, we went only through the first two books of Tanakh. Then I had to stop from time to time to go to organize demonstrations in Washington and to fight for this or that. So I used all types of pretexts not to go too quickly. But that was a great experience. And what's interesting in Pardes, I found out there are many people who went to their Judaism in a very different way. There were those who started from religion, and then they found out that their approach to religion, it's not prison. It's a way to reach people who are different than you. And then they moved to Zionism. And then they moved to different types of looking on Judaism. And there are people who started from being absolutely secular. And it is Zionism which brought them back to religion. So we Jews, we have the components of our Jewish identity in a very different order. And with the time I found out, being in the government and after this in Jewish agency, that sometimes it is very difficult to find the platform where Jews can meet and discuss their differences or their different approaches. I remember, well, today the world is very polarized. In America, it's impossible. The people on the left will not talk to the people on the right. And those who talk will make it a big secret from all their families, and vice versa, of course. And in this, by the way, I can tell from my experience, the fact that we are failing in the fight against anti-Semitism is one of the reasons, because anti-Semitism succeeded to divide us on anti-Semitism on the left, which loves Jews and hates Israel, and anti-Semitism on the right, which loves Israel and hates Jews. And we prefer to choose anti-Semitism in the opposite camp and attack it. And when the left attacks anti-Semitism on the right and the right attacks anti-Semitism on the left, it only helps to them. It helps politically. It doesn't help to the fight against anti-Semitism. So that was one of the problems that I had to deal with. But then I found out that no less problem is the fact inside our family that Orthodox will not talk to non-Orthodox. I remember, maybe you remember, there was who is a Jew debate when I first time in the government in 1997, which finished with Vadat Neiman, which was great finish. But before it finished, we had, and I as a minister in the government, the first government of Bibi Netanyahu in 1996, I had to organize kind of discussion between Reformed and Orthodox Jews. And I decided I'll start from the platform which I know very well, Jewish Federation of New York, my great friends who were with us all these years. And I came there meeting with some leaders of Reformed movement, and I say, why shouldn't we listen to those Haredi in Israel? Of course, they are wrong on everything, but aren't they right when they say that they have 10 generations of rabbis in the family? And Reformed are simply not old enough. You don't have 10 generations. So let's start listening to their experience of keeping it for 10 generations. I was accused that, and you, Brutus, you who was with us all these years, you want us to go to our enemies? Okay, let's start from the different side. I went to Knesset, to my Knesset, and I say to Aguda and Shas, look, here is a delegation coming from America. It's true that there are two leaders of federations, two of them are Reformed. But don't you know that Reformed, it's majority of Jews in diaspora, at least let's talk to them. And said, what, you want to finish our political career? That we will not sit with them. So that was the situation. Today you can say it's different, it's not very much different. It's still, in Jewish Agency I could appreciate it, that's why I loved my position in Jewish Agency, because it's one of the few bodies, it might be the only body where the leaders of all these movements are sitting together. But on the base of Zionism, to find platform where on the base of Judaism, all these people can sit together, discuss, disagree, and at the same time to feel that we are part of one journey. We are participants in the same journey. It's very difficult, and that's why this institute, Pardes, is so important. And I heard that you will soon have a new library, which will be called in the name of Malka, Zichrona Levracha, and Meir Schweiger. You were there, Chaim Arukim. I think it's very appropriate. I think it's good. And in general, I was in many communities all over the world. I don't think there is any significant community that I wasn't. And of course, assimilation is a big disease, plague of our people. And I found out there are only two factors which can slow down this process. These factors are tradition and Zionism. If you have a connection to your people, it saves you. If you have connection to the state of Israel, it saves. Even if you don't have both, you can work on it. But if you don't have this and this, if you don't have both of them, your grandchildren will not be Jewish. It's true about Mexico, it's true about France, it's true about Russia, it's true about United States, it's true about South Africa, Australia, you name it. And so the fact that there is institution which keeps these two banners together, respect and love to the tradition and love to the state of Israel, that's Pardes. And I salute you on your 50th year, and knowing how our battles continue, I believe that you will be needed at least for the next 1,000 years.
Thank you, Natan Sharansky. We appreciate your coming on time, your immortal words that you said to your wife, whom you hadn't seen in 12 years, right after you got married. The first words you said to her on that bridge in Germany stick in my mind when you told her, "Sorry, I'm late." We appreciate your coming on time here. Our next speaker is Rabbi Michael Swirsky. He was in his 20s when he had an unusual idea, creating a non-denominational Beit Midrash open to all Jews where they could study the classical texts of our tradition. And he made his idea a reality. May I introduce the founder of Pardes, Rabbi Michael Swirsky.
I'm smiling, outside and inside. Honored teachers and students, special guests, dear friends, I stand here today in gratitude, amazement, and wonder. I could not have imagined opening the doors of the Pardes Institute 50 years ago that this very small, modest undertaking would not only weather 5 decades, but flourish and grow to what it is today, a signal presence in this country and this city, and a significant contributor to the life of the Jewish people the world over. That it has done so is a tribute to generation after generation of dedicated teachers, students, alumni, lay leaders, and supporters, all animated by Pardes' special vision. Over these 50 years, thank you, yes. Over these 50 years, Israel and Jerusalem too have known astonishing growth, trebling in population, expanding economically many times over, developing culturally and socially beyond measure, gaining in strength and confidence despite the ongoing challenges. I would like to suggest a certain parallel between the two developments of our country and city on one hand and of our institute. If I were asked to coin a one-word motto for the whole Zionist project, it would be welcome, Bruchim Habaim. Welcome to the diverse communities of Israel scattered throughout the world, to their distinctive traditions. Welcome to a country with room for all, not only to take refuge, although refuge is still important, but to take root and to grow and fertilize each other in the mosaic of a renewed, multifaceted Jewish society and culture. Welcome to every individual Jew who comes here, each bearing a distinct cultural background, life history, identity, personality, sensibility, values, needs, and aspirations. Each seeking not only a safe physical haven, but also, and increasingly as time goes by, a spiritual haven, a renewed connection to the history and heritage of the Jewish people. A sense of participation and shared meaning, each in his or her own personal way. So too, on a much smaller scale, the Pardes Institute from the very beginning made it its mission to afford a welcome, to open a door, to the world of the Jewish tradition, offering each newcomer, through an introduction to the textual sources, an opportunity to explore that tradition, immerse in it, and appropriate it in his or her particular fashion, according to what he or she found congenial, helpful, illuminating, or meaningful. Uniquely, Pardes extended that warm welcome with no strings attached. Beyond opening the door, it had no agenda other than meeting thoughtfully and empathetically the students' desire to learn. The outcome of that learning was never predetermined. It was to be an open-ended process. Come in, open these books with us, invest some significant time and serious effort here in getting to know them, in exploring and pondering them. We are here to help you, but it will be up to you to test and challenge, to adopt or adapt, to reject or embrace what you find. Pardes also set out to be, in itself, multifaceted, reflecting the rich array of options the tradition offered, embodying what Jonathan Sacks, in a different context, elegantly termed the dignity of difference. That is why the initial Pardes faculty was by design so diverse. We had charismatic Israeli-born teachers like Adin Steinsaltz and Eliezer Schweid, who, like many of the students, had been drawn to the Jewish tradition from the outside, from so-called secular backgrounds, but who had made the study and exposition of Judaism, one leaning toward the mystical, the other toward the rational, their life's work. We had scholars like David Hartman and Arya Strykovsky, raised and educated in Eastern European yeshiva traditions, both Haredi and modern Orthodox, both American and Israeli, but themselves intellectually eclectic and unconventional. We had broad-minded mentors like Mike Rosnack and Dov Berkovitz, who's with us, whose roots were in the cultures of German and American Jewry, with their distinctive fusions of tradition and modernity. We had a brilliant scholar of Oriental extraction, Aryeh Tweg, whose ancestry went back via the Far East to the ancient Jewish community of Iraq, with its own time-honored traditions and sensibilities. And we had guest lecturers like Yeshaya Leibovitz, Moshe Greenberg, Yaakov Katz, Ze'ev Falk, Yaron Ezrahi, Mordechai Bar-On, each representing another Jewish reality, concern, and mode of thought. That is how Pardes began, with teachers who could offer different models of how Jewishness could be expressed, and thus different paths the students might choose to take. V'chol ha'am ro'im et hakolot, says the book of Exodus. At Sinai, multiple voices were heard, each Jew present hearing a distinct voice according to his or her capacity and receptivity. And as we are taught, the souls of all Jews ever to live, the souls of all of us, were present there. Shiv'im panim la Torah, says the Midrash. The Torah has innumerable facets, speaks in countless tongues, so as to be accessible and intelligible to all. Arba'a nichnesu laPardes. There were 4 who entered the Pardes, the garden of mystical knowledge, says the Talmud. It was a venture not without peril, and only one of them, Rabbi Akiva emerged unscathed. It was this Akiva who had entered the larger world of Torah well along in life, but became the greatest sage of his day. Could an educational institution focused on a process rather than an outcome, that dared to begin with the agenda of the student rather than the teacher, that sought to not to indoctrinate or mold, but rather to respond and facilitate? Could such an institution have a future? These 50 years have, I believe, demonstrated not only that it was possible, but that the risk was eminently worth taking. I am buoyed by a hope that the vibrant, flourishing Pardes of today, with its many programs and courses, with its brilliant, far-sighted faculty and leadership, will continue to embody this openness and diversity, will continue to extend the welcome to all that has been its hallmark and raison d'etre, and that the inclusive vision that Pardes represents will continue to radiate outward through its thousands of alumni, enhancing the character of Jewish life everywhere, wherever their separate paths may lead them. And to you all, Yishar Koach v'Hatzlacha.
We want to welcome and invite Mark Friedman, chair of the Pardes North American Board, who traveled far from his home in Florida to be with us today, who will be speaking on behalf of both the North American and Israeli boards. Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. So you notice this out here potchking with the speakers. So for how many of you is it too loud? And for how many of you is it too low? Okay. So one of the other things I'm observing and looking at everyone is that apparently I am the only male who didn't get the memo on the dress code. So if you don't remember my name, Mark Friedman, remember the guy with the tie. I want to thank the Begin Center for hosting this 50th anniversary kickoff celebration on short notice. I want to thank Natan Sharansky for joining us today and in sharing his story and his relationship with Pardes, which is very special. And I want to welcome my dear friends from Nashville and from Israel, Moshe and Libby Worthen, who infused me with the beauty of the Pardes Institute. I'm forever indebted to both of them. Today, I have the high honor and privilege to represent the North American Board, and as David told you, also the Israel boards of Pardes, in bringing greetings and sharing welcoming remarks. First, I want to recognize and thank my fellow colleague, Israel Board Chair Morley Levin, who is watching this event via live stream in America. She was unable to be with us. She's tending to her husband, Norm. We hope for his full recovery and for them to be back in Israel soon. And I want to also recognize my soon-to-be new partner in crime, Brad Grubb, who will become the Israel Board Chair, and I'm looking forward to working with him. And I want to recognize fellow Pardes board members who have preceded Morley and me as board chairs from North America, Deborah Shapira, Tom Barad, Fran Gordon, Mark Levenfuss, and from the Israel Board, Sherwin Pomerantz, John Corey, Michael Gillis, Brian Glenville, Audrey Scher, and Libby and Moshe Worthen. The success of Pardes today is attributable to the love and devotion that these individuals have demonstrated throughout the years. It is a legacy in which they should all be justifiably proud and for which we are deeply appreciative for the talent and time they have given to Pardes. My remarks today are sandwiched between Pardes founder Mike Swirsky, who told you a little bit about the past, and Pardes' president Leon Morris, who will soon share his vision of the future of Pardes. Mike has told you about the Pardes past, and Leon, of course, will share the future. My job is to share Pardes of the present. It can all be summed up in one word, all capital letters, impact. Pardes, which most of you know means orchard, is in my mind the ripest, sweetest, most fragrant, and flourishing orchard in all the world. Jewish knowledge literally bursting from its branches, its broad leaves, and its wondrous flowers, with all colors and shades of Jewish text from throughout the ages. Who would not want to linger in this orchard? Replete with gardens of stories that regale us with the richness of the Jewish people throughout history. I know this past Shabbat and until Simchat Torah, we are reading from the book of Deuteronomy. But I want to talk about the enormous impact of Pardes, and I'm going to do so by sharing a few numbers with all of you. On the Hebrew calendar, it is almost 5783. So give or take a few changes to the calendar over the millennia and the centuries, and not accounting for a few leap years, take 5,783 and multiply it by 365, and that gives us 2,110,785 days that we Jews have been around. Pardes is 50 years old. Yom Huledet Sameach Pardes. 50 times 365, and we get 18,250. So, in the entire history of the Jewish people, Pardes has been a presence for 0.008 of our total existence. Wow. Yet in this relatively teeny tiny amount of time, just look at our all caps impact on the Jewish people and Jewish life. As the experts would say, you could look it up, and I did. As of today, Hayom Hazeh, 9,263 Pardes alums, including more than 7,100 in the United States and Canada, along with alumni from nearly every continent. Alums holding jobs as Jewish professionals today, 1,206. 164 Wexner Fellows, 113 Wexner Field Fellows, 109 DeRote Fellows. That, folks, is a lot of fellows. 614 Hillel professionals, including 79 Hillel executive directors. Pardes alum are found in Hillels in 32 states in the U.S. and 7 other countries with a Hillel presence. There are 674 Jewish day school professionals who are proud Pardes alums, including 34 heads of school among the 363 Jewish day schools where you'll find Pardes alums. And did I mention rabbis? Glad you asked. There are 639 ordained rabbis across all denominations who proudly count themselves as Pardes alums. 166 are congregational rabbis. There are currently 94 Pardes alums studying in rabbinical schools, along with 31 cantors. And there's more. 44 university professors and instructors of Jewish subjects are alums, and 140 alums are Judaic study educators in synagogue schools. And there's even more. Tens of thousands who listen to Pardes podcasts who participate in live or online learning sessions. Hundreds of graduates of the summer and winter Pardes learning seminars, and thousands who have graced the Pardes Bet Midrash for community education enrichment programs. It all adds up to uppercase, bold, impact, impact, impact. Leon is now going to tell you a little bit more about how we plan to grow these numbers to impact the lives of more Jews in more places and to attract and engage a growingly diverse Jewish people. So I welcome all of you to the orchard that is unlike any other, an orchard from which we harvest the riches of Jewish history, spirituality, and tradition. The Pardes Institute of Jewish Studies today, the global platform for Jewish education, the global platform for transforming Jewish lives, the global platform with its roots firmly planted in Jerusalem. Thank you. I didn't get to shake your hand before.
Thank you, Mark. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention the presence of Jerry Goodman, who was the board chair of Pardes longer than anyone else, 17 years, the board chair of Pardes. Thank you, Jerry Goodman. Our next speaker is our fearless leader, President of Pardes, Leon Morris.
One of my favorite rabbinic texts is a description in Mechilta de Rabbi Ishmael of the way in which Moshe remembers to take the bones of Joseph with him as the children of Israel are leaving Egypt. And the Midrash offers a vivid picture of two aronot, two arks, being carried side by side for 40 years as the children of Israel make their way from Egypt to the land of Israel. In one ark are the Luchot HaBrit, the 10 Commandments, and in the other ark are Joseph's bones. And usually when I teach this text, I teach it to explore what it means to be a living embodiment of the Torah. That the Midrash says that what was written in one ark was fulfilled in the life of the one whose bones rest in the other ark. But today, as we mark a half century of Pardes, I want to think about that text in a different way. How might we hold on to the past in a way that helps us to move forward? The image of the Midrash runs counter to how we usually think about what it means to hold on to the past. Holding on to the past usually means being stuck in what already happened and not being able to move past it. But for the children of Israel, holding that ark with Joseph's bones is a kind of embrace of the past which helps them to proceed, that leads them to new realities, that allows them to be transformed into a nation, and that enables them to enter the promised land. Like the bones of Joseph, Pardes' rich and storied history that we celebrate today can be the basis for a bright future. This year-long celebration is not just about the past. It's about a vision for the future of Pardes, and even more than that, it's about a vision for the future of the Jewish people. And like the children of Israel holding on to Joseph's bones, our past will be the impetus to move us forward, to embrace new opportunities of new realities, and to serve as the basis for our own transformation. So how can we hold on to the past in a way that will help us to move forward? First of all, we need a clear sense of direction. It isn't enough to know where we are. We also need to know where we're headed. For the past 9 months, Pardes has been developing a 3-year strategic plan as a roadmap of where we want to be in the year 2025 and beyond. And as we think about 5 decades of Jewish learning marked by openness, passion, Jewish knowledge, and inclusivity, our mission has never been more relevant and necessary to the long-term stability of the Jewish people than it is right now. We are committed to a future that allows us to serve greater numbers of students in both our immersive and short-term programs. Through Pardes North America, we'll work with partner organizations to raise the level of Jewish knowledge among all volunteer lay leaders and to foster the Beit Midrashification of Jewish life, where study is increasingly the way that Jews connect to their tradition and to one another. We want to invest far more in our alumni from every Pardes program, a community of thousands of people able and ready to deepen their own Jewish lives and to transform the communities of which they are a part. Our future is one in which Pardes Torah reaches farther and wider in the marketplace of ideas. And like the children of Israel holding on to Joseph's bones, our future is one in which we too come home to a new and fully activated world-class facility, Beit Karen, which serves as a destination for locals and visitors alike. Beit Karen. The second key for holding on to our past in ways that allow us to move forward is by acknowledging how different our destination is from anything we've experienced in the past. For the children of Israel, the contrast between Egypt and the land of Israel could not have been more pronounced. Well, Jewish life in the diaspora has changed significantly since 1972. And when we consider our next 50 years, the nature of Jewish identity will be quite different than it currently is. The future will include far more hybridity and fluidity in Jewish life. The denominational framework that served for the last 150 years will likely be transformed. A numerical increase in both the Haredi population as well as in those who define themselves as Jews of no religion will widen the gulf in the Jewish community. The majority of the world's Jews 50 years from now will live here in Israel, something that's not been the case since the days of the Second Temple. And while our long-term immersive programs will certainly continue to be the signature offering of Pardes, our commitment to learning will increasingly need to adapt and expand to these new realities. Our destination will be so different from our original place of departure, and acknowledging that helps us move forward. Finally, our ability to move forward while holding on to the past will be in no small measure because of the strength of those who walk alongside of us. Moses didn't carry the ark with Joseph's bones by himself. It was carried for 40 years by numerous people who stepped up to fulfill the task at hand. What a blessing it is for Pardes to draw from the strength of those who walk alongside of us. Our board members who are educated, engaged, and activated around optimally supporting the organization. Our dedicated and indefatigable staff whose hard work and long hours are mainly compensated by witnessing how their work transforms the lives of our students. Our incredibly talented, knowledgeable, and sensitive faculty, past and present, who teach and inspire, and whose love for Torah is only matched by the love they have for our students. And of course, our supporters who make all of this possible. Planning for our future requires greater financial resources than Pardes has ever had. The investment of our donors enables us to reach more students, to deepen their sense of belonging and commitment to Jewish life, and to cultivate a love for our texts and tradition. Finally, our students and alumni, whose countercultural decision to enter our Beit Midrash is building a stronger, more educated, more vibrant Jewish life around the world. Let's carry these bones with us. Let's grasp onto this arc and march forward to the future with the roadmap that we've carefully laid out. Let's prepare ourselves for new and unfamiliar realities that lie ahead. And let's continue to lend our strength to carry the past half century with us as we venture toward our next 50 years.
A brief musical interlude. This is an Iraqi piyut for celebration. Let's see if I can get something in the middle here. מנבו עלי הרים רגלי מבשר שלום בבניין עירך מנבו עלי הרים רגלי מבשר שלום בבניין עירך one more time מנבו עלי הרים רגלי מבשר שלום בבניין עירך מנבו עלי הרים רגלי מבשר שלום בבניין עירך כל צופייך יישאו כל רינה התנערי מתוך מגינה עין בעין יישאו כל רינה ושבו בנייך וגבולך מנבו עלי הרים רגלי מבשר שלום בבניין עירך מנבו עלי הרים רגלי מבשר שלום בבניין עירך לשבויים דרור בשיר ומזמור אל בית הר המור יישב ילך סולו סולו את המסילה פיצחו רננה ותהילה יבוא מבשר בלשונו מילה קומי אורי כי באורך מנבו עלי הרים רגלי מבשר שלום בבניין עירך מנבו עלי הרים רגלי מבשר שלום בבניין עירך מנבו עלי הרים רגלי מבשר שלום בבניין עירך מנבו עלי הרים רגלי מבשר שלום בבניין עירך.
Thank you, Yoni Batat. The Pardes faculty is the heart and soul of Pardes. They're an outstanding group of Jewish educators and are at the core of our success over these 5 decades. Representing them today is Leah Rosenthal, the most veteran member of the Pardes faculty today. She was among the first women to teach Talmud in Jerusalem, and quite honestly, anywhere. She has brilliantly taught generations of Pardes students and shared her enthusiastic love for Talmud with them, and also gets a mazel tov on recently becoming a grandmother. May I present to you Leah Rosenthal.
Thank you, David. Started teaching at Pardes at the academic year of 1988-89. Teaching 34 years, 34 out of 50, not bad. Many things have changed in 34 years. I've changed, the world has changed, Pardes has changed, but the one thing that has not changed is Pardes's deep commitment to the study of Torah, as we've heard before, the deep conviction that the Torah, the Jewish tradition, Jewish texts are the heritage of every Jew. And every Jew should have access to these texts, and every Jew should be engaged with these texts. And the learning and the conversations and the debates and the machloket that develops in a bit midrash as Jews, different Jews from all over the world, of all different ideologies, study Torah together, that conversation is invaluable for the continuity of the Jewish world and Jewish tradition. How appropriate then that Pardes has decided to include in this festive occasion as we mark 50 years, a taste of Torah study, an impromptu flash bit midrash that we're going to engage with for just a brief amount of time this afternoon together. You have a text at the back of your program. It's a short text, just a couple of lines, brought by the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, in Masechet Sukkah. This entire short text is based on a statement brought by the Talmud Bavli, attributed to Reish Lakish, one of the dominant, outstanding rabbinic figures in Eretz Yisrael. It belongs to what is traditionally referred to as the second generation of Amoraim in Eretz Yisrael, active alongside his colleague and Chevruta, Rabbi Yochanan. His teachings fill the pages both of the Talmud Yerushalmi and the Talmud Bavli. And in this short, brief text, Reish Lakish wants to tell us something. He wants to tell us something about Jewish history. And the text is short, but it spans about 600 years of Jewish history in its content. Pardes is Pardes. I'm going to ask you to learn this text or read this text with whoever happens to be sitting next to you. If you know them, wonderful. If not, you can introduce yourselves. But just a 2-3 minute chavruta. Read this text, and I'd like you to ask yourself the following question: what does Reish Lakish want us to know? And why is it so important that we know what Reish Lakish is conveying in this passage, right, in this statement of his? Just about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll share some ideas together. In an ideal world, I would never do this. But to interrupt the buzz of learning is always a hard thing to do. In an ideal world, I would love to hear some of your thoughts that you barely had time to develop. But in a non-ideal world, in the confines of the amount of time that we have, I'd like to share some of my thoughts about this text. This text has been on my mind for quite a while. What's clear is Reish Lakish is drawing a narrative, a historical narrative, right, where time and again there's a recurring theme. Time and again, Torah is, dare I say it, he says it, right? Nishtakha, Torah is forgotten. And time and again, someone comes, right? Someone, heroic figure, comes in the nick of time and reestablishes Torah, saves it from being forgotten. But what Reish Lakish emphasizes is that Torah is forgotten in Eretz Yisrael. And the savior at critical moments in Jewish history comes from Bavel, comes from Babylonia. And he tells us, or he marks out 3 separate occasions on which this takes place. The first, he takes us back to what is pretty much the end of biblical times. Ezra HaSofer, Ezra the scribe, who leads the people back from Babylonia after the years of exile, comes back to Eretz Yisrael, which is indeed desolate after the events of the conquest of Eretz Yisrael by Babylonia, by Nebuchadnezzar, the destruction of the first temple, the emptying, basically, of Eretz Yisrael, of vibrant Jewish settlement. And he leads the people back in a very slow and difficult process of coming back and reviving Jewish settling in the land of Israel, Jewish commitment to the Torah and to its commandments. And he begins the process, leads the process of rebuilding what will become the Second Temple. The second step along the way is about 400 years later, as we move towards the last decades of that Second Temple. As Jewish history develops, we are again at a moment of crisis. And when we look at the historical context in which Hillel, the elder, Hillel HaZaken, Hillel HaBavli, as the Bavli likes to call him, comes up from Bavel and finds a community in crisis. And again, when we think historically, we're speaking of the decline of the Hashmonean kingdom, the Roman conquest of Eretz Yisrael. We're speaking of the appointment of Herod as the king and sovereign. We're speaking of great factionalism within the people, amongst the people, Prushim and Sadducees, right? Pharisees and Sadducees and other sects. A great inner struggle and struggle with external challenges. And the world of Torah, as Reish Lakish describes it, is weakened, dramatically weakened to the point of nearly being forgotten. And then Hillel HaBavli shows up. And in rabbinic narrative, in rabbinic historic narrative, Hillel revives the world of Torah study and Torah learning and Torah commitment in Eretz Yisrael. He himself becomes the first Nasi, the patriarch. He establishes a line, a dynasty of patriarchs who will actually follow through for 400 years. His descendants will head the rabbinic world in Eretz Yisrael. And Hillel, to a large extent, also begins what we know as the classic Tannaitic period. Most people consider Hillel and Shammai as the first generation of classic Tannaim. So once again, at a critical moment in Jewish history, someone comes from Bavel and revives the very broken community of Eretz Yisrael, which historic events have created a crisis. The third step, or the third time, brings us about 200 years later, almost to the time of Reish Lakish himself, okay? About a generation or two before Reish Lakish's time, when Rabbi Chia and his sons come from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, and presumably also, as described here, find a land which is desolate of Torah study, nishtakha Torah, and think once again we have the same narrative where someone comes to revive the Torah in Eretz Yisrael. What's astonishing, of course, about this last moment in time is Rabbi Chia, as we know from many places in the Talmud, is an associate and colleague and disciple of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. We're speaking about 200 years after the classic Tannaitic period has begun. We're very close to the classic Tannaitic period ending, with the culmination of that period with the producing of the Mishnah. Torah study is flourishing in Eretz Yisrael at this time. How could we imagine a more vibrant and active and productive world of Torah study and Torah productivity than the times in which Rabbi Chia comes to Eretz Yisrael? How could Reish Lakish possibly suggest that Torah is forgotten, and had Rabbi Chia not arrived in Eretz Yisrael, Torah might have been forgotten? This puzzled me for a very long time, until it occurred to me that there are basically perhaps two ways in which Torah can be forgotten. Torah can be forgotten because of weakening of leadership, weakening of communities. Torah can be forgotten. But Torah can also be forgotten because there's a very strong, charismatic, authoritative voice that is leading the world of Torah to the exclusion of other voices. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, in this act of canonization, as he produces the Mishnah, by definition, canonization creates a core and a central text, but it marginalizes other texts by definition. What Rabbi Chia does, and this is Rabbi Chia's role in the rabbinic pantheon, Rabbi Chia is the master of Braitot. Rabbi Chia comes to Eretz Yisrael and he insists on collecting all of the texts, or much of the texts, that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi rejected and did not include in his Mishnah. And Rabbi Chia becomes the master of Braitot. According to some authorities, he's the creator of the Tosefta, which exactly does that. Reinserts back into the tradition the voices that have potentially been marginalized by a powerful, charismatic, authoritative figure such as Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. So perhaps Reish Lakish is warning us, instructing us, that Torah needs to be preserved. No voice in Torah should be marginalized. No voice in the Beit Midrash should lose its presence. And Torah, again, under a strong hand of a figure like Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, Torah is at risk also of being forgotten. And Rabbi Lakish gives this shout out to Rabbi Chia. He starts this passage by saying, "May I be an atonement for Rabbi Chia and his sons," which, according to Rashi, as he comments on the page, is an expression of honor and respect that one gives to one's parents or to one's teacher, one revered teacher. I think Reish Lakish is telling us, let's be careful. Even as our centers grow strong, and as our authority figures are strong, maybe even precisely then, we have to make sure that no voices are marginalized to the point of being forgotten. And those voices have to be reintroduced back into the Beit Midrash. I want to suggest that perhaps Reish Lakish has a particularly personal investment in this idea. Some of you might know that Reish Lakish's own biography gives him also maybe perhaps that outsider perspective, just like Rabbi Chia, who comes from Bavel, understands that there's more perspectives than just one. And the perspective of the one who dwells at the core and the center of the rabbinic world might not be the only perspective that should be expressed in the Beit Midrash. Reish Lakish himself came from the outside in. And Reish Lakish himself knows what it's like to live in the generation of a charismatic, authoritative teacher of Torah. Reish Lakish is Rabbi Yochanan's partner. And anyone who knows anything about Rabbi Yochanan could just imagine that Rabbi Yochanan is no less than Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, a strong character. And Reish Lakish knows the dangers of Torah being forgotten, some Torah being forgotten, because there's a powerful leader. I think Pardes has truly internalized as well that message of Reish Lakish and of Rabbi Chia, and really does truly believe that no voices should be marginalized in the study of Torah. Pardes has located itself in the center of the Jewish world, in Yerushalayim, in Eretz Yisrael, acknowledging that there is a center. There's a strong center, and thank God we've merited that this center is growing and growing stronger, and a vibrancy of Torah and Torah study in the land of Israel. Jerusalem is unparalleled in Jewish history. And Pardes is right here in the center. But Pardes insists, like Rabbi Chia and like Reish Lakish, that all voices come to participate in this conversation, without which the Torah itself suffers. Right? It's not only on behalf of those outsiders that we welcome, that our Beit Midrash doors, the Beit Midrash are welcomed in, it's for the sake of Torah itself that it not be forgotten. No sincere, authentic, genuine, committed, and serious voice should be marginalized from the conversation of the Beit Midrash. I myself have been privileged for 34 years to feel that I can honestly say every day at Pardes, in Shiur, in the Beit Midrash, how privileged we are to have that conversation going on. This is an opportunity to thank everyone that contributes, the entire Pardes community that holds this together. And it's an opportunity to wish us all that we go from strength to strength, shenelech michail el chail, and that we, as the verse continues, Yelchu michail el chail v'yira'el Elokim b'Tzion, and we be seen before. It feels so incredible to say this pasuk right here, that we be seen before the Lord in Zion, as Mount Zion is right across the way from us. שנלך מחיל אל חיל ויראה אל אלוקים מציון. תודה רבה.
Thank you so much, Leah. As we're nearing the conclusion of this ceremony, just some housekeeping notes. After we conclude with Hatikva, all are welcome to join Mincha. We'll be having an egalitarian and Mechitza service out here on the porch. The Mechitza service will be over there, and the egalitarian service will be over here. There'll be drinks served, including wine, inside the building. The 4 p.m. tour, which will leave a little bit after 4, will meet at the central desk in the lobby. The 4:30 tour with Jamie Salter to Bible Hill, Givata Tanakh, will leave from right outside the building at 4:30. And the 4:30 tour of the Begin Center has been rescheduled to 5 o'clock. And it too will leave from the central desk in the lobby. We now call upon Libby Worthen for a special presentation.
It is I feel very privileged to follow so many wonderful, revered people in our community. And, but here I am, getting whacked for the flag. But I want to talk a little bit about surprises. We were surprised if those of you who had shared lunch with us today, my husband Moshe and I received a wonderful surprise from our 4 children in honor of our 85th birthdays. And I have a privilege now. I've been bestowed, the privilege has been bestowed upon me for another surprise. And so I have to tell you in one little vignette. Moshe and I lived here, came here in 2001, and we lived here for a quarter century, and then we moved back 8 years ago to Nashville, Tennessee, to be with our children and our siblings. And when we went back, actually Mark Friedman was the head exec of the Federation. He insisted that we be honored by the community of Nashville. And we said, oh, no, we don't want to do that. And he dragged us into it. So we went, and the community was assembled, and we walked into the reception, and I'm looking there, and I'm saying, David Bernstein? Oh my God, you're here? You came from Israel to honor us? It was an amazing, wonderful addition to that evening. And so, David, would you come up here? Okay. All of you know David Bernstein, I am sure. And so I have been given these remarks to present to you. Okay. Dean David Bernstein is known to tell incoming students that, quote, next year you will often find yourself to be the most Jewishly knowledgeable person in the room, end quote. With these words, David challenges new students to consider from day one how they will use the Torah learned at Pardes to build a stronger, more literate, and vibrant Jewish world. David's passionate belief that every Jew deserves access to our sacred texts and rituals as a student, and that every Jew is likewise responsible to lovingly transmit their Torah as a teacher, encapsulates the spirit of his career. And here's a little bit about his career. Following his tenures at Ramaz Upper School in Manhattan, at Midrashet Lindenbaum Bravenders here in Jerusalem, David was appointed Dean of Pardes in 1998. And actually, Moshe and I were very involved at the time, and we've known David all those years. We have worked really closely with him. We've worked from some wonderful times and some very, very difficult times. And over those years, we grew very close. We learned mutually to respect each other and to love each other very much. And so last year in September 2021, David became Dean Emeritus after 22 years of unwavering commitment to Pardes. And that commitment remains as strong as ever, each and every day. In recognition of David's career contributions to the Jewish people, Pardes is very excited to announce that with thanks to a generous cohort of supporters, we are naming the Aron Kodesh and the Worthen Beit Midrash of Beit Karen Pardes' new home in David's honor. David has given his heart and soul to growing the Beit Midrash. The Aron Kodesh is the ritual, heart, and soul of the Jewish people and perfectly symbolizes what David means to Pardes. We have something, let me show you. This will appear in Aron Kodesh. And it says, the Torah belongs to all Jews. In honor of Dr. David I. Bernstein, for more than 2 decades of devoted leadership as Dean of Pardes.
Okay, the MC is not supposed to have surprises. But this was totally unexpected. I have tears in my eyes. I'm speechless, which is something an MC shouldn't be. Thank you. Thank you, whoever was involved in this. Thank you very much. The traditional blessing of Shechianu is recited when we mark an occasion we are experiencing for the first time, or a celebration or holiday we have not had in a year or more, or on a new fruit or an article of clothing. As we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the founding of Pardes, there are many, many people to thank. We will not list them now. The list is way too long. However, before we sing Hatikva, it is appropriate for us to give thanks to God for helping us to reach this day And therefore, I invite you to join me in reciting the Shechianu blessing together on our new hats and on this happy occasion, to be followed by Hatikva. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shechianu v'kimanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Let the 50th anniversary celebrations begin.